Hello and welcome. I am Deji Badimasi. 2 months after the abduction of the March 28 Abuja-Kaduna train-bound passengers, the federal government has been given an ultimatum of 7 days by the terrorists to enter into a meaningful dialogue with them. The terrorists have threatened to start killing the passengers in captivity if their demands are not met by the federal government. And they say the negotiations with the government will not be centered on money, but the release of their children allegedly kept in a detention facility in Yola, the Adamawa state capital. That's in northeast Nigeria. Now, the terrorists who contacted the spokesperson of Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, Tuku Mamu, said the federal government has contacted them on how to secure the release of the abducted passengers. They complained that there seems to be insincerity on the part of the government, putting the lives of the victims at risk. They maintained that the government suspended the resumption of the train service indefinitely because of their threats, and repeated their threats now that if the train services resume, they would attack. Now, the resumption of the train service, of course, has been suspended indefinitely. Now, all of this is happening at a time when the government is pushing an agenda of no negotiation with terrorists. What then could be the way forward? Because these victims have been in captivity now for the past 59 days in the most unfavorable conditions. Joining me now to discuss this further is Dennis Amakri, who is a security analyst and a former director of the Department of State Services, DSS. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. How does the government handle this 7-day ultimatum?
First of all, I would like to make it very clear that the terrorists don't have any right to give the government an ultimatum. Because after all, when you come to think of it, they are terrorists. They are just out there trying to create terror. And of course, now that some of their people have been arrested, they feel they can now go ahead and be given ultimatum. But all that being said, you find out that the federal government should have moved faster to even come to this level where they have to give ultimatum. Because if they move faster and dealt with them, they will not have any kind of situation where they have to give ultimatum.
How could the federal government have moved faster to deal with this? Because, I mean, the fear had always been that, look, if the security agencies stormed where they are kept, I mean, where the hostages are kept now, it may lead to the death of the hostages themselves. And the terrorists have made it clear that if the government made any attempt to storm the place, that they would all die.
Yes, there are methods and there are ways of attacking a situation like that. It is well known that they are going to use the hostages as a human shield to cover themselves. But of course, if you plan it very well, you can separate those terrorists from the hostages and then, of course, rescue them. That's why we're talking about a well-trained force, like a SWAT team that will go in there and isolate and then rescue. But we have not got to that situation where we are taking this kind of emergency forces very seriously. Otherwise, we shouldn't have allowed this thing to degenerate to this level. But that being said again, when you come to think of negotiation, I'm for negotiation, but I'm against payment of ransom. So you can negotiate with them, either directly or through third parties, and then, of course, do an exchange. Because prisoner exchange is a worldwide process that is recognized and can be done.
But another thing is that, look, in time past, these terrorists have proved to be very unreliable. You start negotiating with them along the road, they come up with more conditions. How does the government deal with this, considering that the relatives of the victims are of course, they've been clamoring, they've been crying for the release, calling on the government to do something about this, and now that cry has been intensified as a result of this ultimatum. So obviously the government is under pressure. I'm just wondering, how should the government deal with this? I mean, you've just said the terrorists have no right to give the government any ultimatum at all. But we also know that, like what we have seen in the past, they have the capacity to carry out their threat.
Yes, they have the capacity to carry out their threat, but remember, um, the federal government also reserves the right to deal with them if they want to. We've been talking of political will, political will. I am very, very sure. I can tell you that if the Nigerian military is ready, or the police themselves, ready to deal with this thing, they can deal with it. Because they are not a superpower that is hiding somewhere in the forest that can even threaten the might of the Nigerian military or security forces. So now they are there. We've put ourselves in a position where we have to negotiate with them. Yes, we can negotiate with them, but no payment of ransom. But at the same time, we need expert negotiators who are going to talk to the points, deal with them, and of course, negotiators that they will also trust. And I think we have a couple of them in the country now, and then do a very peaceful exchange. That way, nobody dies, nobody is killed, and then it happens that everybody goes back home. But all the same, remember, these are terrorists. After the negotiation, they will continue to do what they do best.
And that's a sad part of it. But how can these terrorists be trusted, for instance, that they will keep their own side of the bargain? Say, for instance, they're asking for the release of their children now. They've also talked about some of their men who are being held in prison. But of course, they are starting with well, they say their children who are being held in a detention facility in Yola. The question is, how difficult is it negotiating with terrorists and trusting them that they'll keep their own side of the bargain?
They will keep their own side of the bargain. Remember that they initiated this idea. That means it tells us something. It tells us that they are hurting too. They needed something which we have, and we have. They have something that we need. So, like I said, if an expert is negotiating, then of course they will negotiate in good faith. In good faith, you cannot negotiate. I've been in situations where I have to negotiate with militants to release hostages that they took, and then of course there is a level of trust that comes into play, because if that trust is not there, and then of course, remember, proof of life is very important, because if you don't negotiate properly, you will see that they are negotiating for a dead person. And
of course, we've seen them do that proof of life video. I mean, they just released another video just a few hours ago as a proof of life, so to speak.
Proof of life, yes.
So what does that say about them? Does that say they are really serious about this and that they're desperate to get a deal?
They are serious. They are trying to impress it on the federal government that they mean business, they are serious, and they will be honest enough to stick to the agreement, And if the government go ahead and then enter into this negotiation with them through a very trusted negotiator, then they will do the exchange and take their own people.
What's the danger in the government? What's the danger now in the government negotiating with this terrorist?
Well, the thing is that some governments will decide not to negotiate at all. And we have examples. The former American president, Abraham Lincoln, during the Civil War in the United States, they have prisoners of war, which the South was holding. And then, of course, they wanted also some of their officers that were arrested from the North. As it was going on, Abraham Lincoln decided to say, no, we are not going to continue on this negotiation again, because if we continue with you, it gives you the credibility. It's like we are recognizing you, you know, you understand? We are recognizing you to be even talking with you. So he stopped that negotiation. So situations like that are rife. It has happened before. Also, you have situations where Israel was negotiating with Egypt, and what they want was the body of a dead soldier. Dead soldier. They want the body back to Israel, and they negotiated. I think they released about 50 or so soldiers, Egyptian soldiers, to the Egyptians, and then got the dead body back, which they took to Israel and buried there. So it depends on the value that you put on the exchange that will happen.
And how are we so sure that if and that's a big if now, if the federal government were to go ahead and negotiate with them and then strikes a deal, get these passengers released, how are we sure that other terrorists may not be inspired by that?
Oh, well, it's something that we've done before. We've the Chibok girls. We negotiated and got some of them, and some were still there till today. So, yes, it is a situation that happens in conflict situations. So, there's no problem there. All I have to say is that, see, we have been playing around with these terrorists for too long, because we need to bear down the might of the federal government on these guys, so that they don't even have the mouth to say that they want to negotiate. We negotiate with Nigerian government. I think this is the time for us to start thinking seriously about whether we want to play around, because what we are doing is playing around with them.
Well, we'll wait and see what happens. But it's no doubt a catch-22 situation for the government. They've given the government 7 days now, and well, we'll wait and see what happens. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on the program, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so very much. All right, we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, Nigeria was treated to a live drama earlier this week when personnel of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, stormed the home of Senator Rochas Okorocha and forcefully arrested him. The EFCC explained that the senator had refused several summons to appear before the commission to answer to allegations of fraud. The anti-graft agency also said the former governor of Imo State jumped an administrative bail. Armed operatives of the EFCC broke down the doors and the ceiling to the personal room of the senator before they eventually whisked him away. Now, tear gas was also used to disperse journalists and others who had been at the premises of the senator at the time. In fact, guns were even fired into the air to scare people away from the expansive compound now. Now, during the siege, Okorocha, while speaking to journalists inside his house, had alleged that the EFCC was trying to frustrate his presidential ambition. He specifically accused the anti-graft agency of preventing him from attending the screening of the APC presidential, from attending the screening now of the APC. That's APC now for its presidential aspirants in Abuja. But the EFCC says he had been handled that way because he had jumped an administrative bail, as I said earlier, and resisted being served court papers for his corruption trial. The commission had in January filed a 17-count criminal charge bordering on diversion of public funds and money laundering to the tune of 2.9 billion naira now against Okorocha. Now, the big talking point in this situation is the manner in which the former governor was arrested. I mean, the EFCC operatives had to destroy some parts of his house to gain access into, his bedroom now before he was forcefully taken away. The question is, Was this legal? Joining me to discuss this further is a legal practitioner, Martin Obono. Martin, thank you very much for joining us on the program. What the EFCC did, was it legal?
So the question is, following the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, whether or not the EFCC complies with the law when they arrested the Senator, Okorocha'S. And the Administration of Criminal Justice Act essentially lays down the rule for which a law enforcement agency or an agent will conduct himself in the process of an arrest or even in the entire process of administration of criminal justice. And so Section 149, subsection 2 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act says that a law enforcement officer can resort to force when necessary force when they want to carry out or effect an arrest in any given situation. And the question then is what they have done in terms of breaking his house and getting entry into his house, whether that amounts to force. Okay, so whether breaking into his apartment was force, was the reasonable force, was proportionate enough. And the question is, why did EFCC need to apply this level of force? If you look at the Administration of Criminal Justice Act again, it also says that a law enforcement officer can actually arrest anybody with or without a warrant. And it provides an exception for which a law enforcement officer can arrest any suspect of a crime or offense without a warrant. One, it says that if the person is seen to be committing a crime. Now, the EFCC says that Rochas Okorocha has evaded or jumped bail and that he has refused to receive court papers and acknowledge them so that he will be able to attend court as the case may be. That in itself is an offense. So finding him anywhere in Nigeria actually is tantamount to arresting him without a warrant. Also, one of the exceptions that the law provides for also is that if such person has been jumping bail as well, so the law enforcement agency can actually arrest that person for jumping bail without necessarily providing or showing an arrest. So, as it were, based on the law, I don't think the law EFCC has committed any offense by breaking into his house or have committed any illegality.
According to the EFCC, they've been they've been trying to serve him with the court process. It's not been easy, and that he had jumped bail. He didn't just jump bail the day he was arrested. He didn't just jump bail like a week before. He had jumped bail, the administrative bail, so to speak, a long time ago. Why did don't you think the EFCC too boxed itself into a corner by waiting for that day when he was to go for his screening and go in there to arrest him? That when you do that kind of thing, then you begin to allow people to impute some kind of political motive to it.
I mean, yes, there are a lot of imputations, to the point at the time of arrest. But also, I have seen situations where law enforcement agencies decide to serve or effect an arrest early hours in the morning because they feel you'll be at home maybe early hours of the day. So that is the time they can get you. So it could also be justified on the side of the EFCC to say that this is the time they could get Rochas Okorocha because he will be at home. He probably will be in Abuja trying to get clearance for his party to be able to contest the presidential primaries and all that. But at the same time, it does not also take away the fact that the EFCC can also be culpable to be used as a political machine or machinery of certain people who really do not want to contest for the seat or the office of the presidency under the ruling APC.
Somehow one tends to get the impression that, so long as the EFCC is covered by law, every other imputation would just will just be irrelevant, so to speak. Martin Obono, thank you very much for joining us on the program, and thanks for your insights.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Now being joined on the program by another lawyer, Okorocha'S Ajanaku, to provide further perspective on that arrest, the arrest now of Senator Rochas Okorocha. Mr. Ajanaku, thank you very much for joining us on the program. First off, how legal or lawful was that arrest?
Beg your pardon?
I said, how lawful was the arrest of Rochas Okorocha, the senator?
You see, the arrest is quite interesting and intriguing at the same time. So many people have different opinions, but I want to say to you that that arrest was lawful. You know why I would say this? For two consecutive occasions, the judge, where his matter, his substantive matter in respect of the FRN against Rochas Okorocha, it came up twice. So that judge had said, had given the EFCC the last opportunity to produce the suspect then in court to answer to his charges. But on two occasions, they have failed to bring him. This third one, I think next week or so, 30th or so, the judge said, threatened them that if they don't bring in the defendants in court, the matter could be thrown out. And I want to say, disagreeing with so many other people, that his arrest, the way it was done, was lawful. I would say it was lawful in this wise, that if you go, EFCC has the power, when they go on to arrest, and you refuse to yield yourself over to them to arrest, they can break into the premises, they can get into the premises by force. It is there in the law. So any other thing that anybody is saying is not law, that is not law, it's not correct. They can go in there and ensure that he's arrested by all lawful means. All lawful means also means entering wherever they know that he is by breaking into it.
So it really doesn't matter, doesn't it matter? Because we've had the side of Okorocha now. Even his lawyer was there that day. He said the EFCC did not produce any warrant of arrest at all. There was no document authorizing his arrest. I mean, how would you react to that?
No, see, if you fail to make yourself available to be served, this is a criminal proceeding. You need to be served personally. But if you are in a place and you refuse to make yourself available to be served, on 2-3 occasions, as EFCC has indicated, that this man has refused, or kind of evading service, they don't need to serve his lawyer. It is only after he has appeared in court that they can serve any other process of court on his lawyer or his counsel. But for now, to bring him before the court, what is needed is to serve him personally. And he has refused or evading service on him, claiming that political undertones and all sorts. The Gobi, I don't know. I'm not concerned with that. What I'm only concerned with now is it lawful for EFCC to break into his apartment? Yes, I say it is lawful. You don't need a warrant again, a warrant to serve. No, now. We know these things. You don't need a warrant to serve criminal proceedings on a suspect before the court. That's where I see it.
But in your view, couldn't this have been done in a different way as the way we saw it? Oh, of course, I mean, one could say, look, what's difficult in the senator himself just walking out of his house, meeting the EFCC guys, and then just go with them? And, you know, he obviously made it difficult. He made everything difficult, no doubt. But couldn't the EFCC have handled this differently?
Tell me, which other way would EFCC will have handled it? If you know one, then let me know. They have said categorically that they attempted to serve him. He evaded service, not once, not twice. And we have also said it now, that if only, and if only if, Rochas Okorocha himself had made himself available to be served, would we have had a scenario that has just been, brought on us? No, now. He is a senator. He should be a gentleman to the court by making himself available to be served. When you are served, they wouldn't have taken you away forcefully. It's just because when you have summons from the court, you must obey the court. But when you have a situation when you make it very impossible to be served, my dear brother, I tell you, EFCC has the power to break into anywhere that you are to serve you or arrest you.
And not just the EFCC, every law enforcement agency would mean, right? I said not just the EFCC, but almost every law enforcement agency.
All law enforcement agents, they have it in their acts. They have the power to break in and they have the power to break out. If you refuse them going out, all minimal costs that they can apply so that you won't get wounded, they can apply either to break in or to break out. It is there in the law. It's in the EFCC Act. It's in the Police Act. It's even in a Administration of Criminal Justice Act. It's there. You can't be detained unlawfully while you went to effect service or to do anything that is lawful by law. It is lawful to go in there to serve the Okorocha'S.
All right. Mr. Olayinka Ajanaku, thank you very much for your contributions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, that's how much we can take on the program this week. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.